Self acceptance might just be the thing that's keeping you anxious. And don't get me wrong, self acceptance is mandatory in escaping anxiety. But unless you understand this key switch I'm gonna be talking about, then it might just hold you anxious forever. And to understand it better, imagine you are an athlete. Imagine you are preparing to run a marathon. You're out there training hard day in, day out. You've been studying this meticulously, understanding all of the key subtleties of running, watching these online videos from running gurus, explaining every principle. And all of them seem to tell you that you need to accept yourself fully, to accept your strengths and your vulnerabilities, to accept the weather and the circumstances on the outside. And you're also quite attached to the idea of making the best of what Mother Nature gave you. You're not a fan of using these weird energy gels that athletes are just swallowing from time to time. You just want to be raw. So, with this in mind, every single time you're training for the marathon, you get to a point where your eyes are hurting because there is a lot of sweat pouring down on your forehead and straight into your eyes. But you're just with the idea that I gotta make the best of what Mother Nature has given me. I can't wipe my forehead or anything. I can't take measures against it. I just have to grit my teeth and keep running because this is what I have to do. You're so stubborn and you just want to accept everything fully, but you've taken the wrong approach with it. Instead of just wiping your forehead like your friends that are in the same situation, you are just struggling for no reason at all. When you could just wipe your forehead, everything would be perfect. But no, you're just stubborn, stubborn, and stubborn. And it even got you a couple of injuries, you made a couple of accidents here and there just because of this stubbornness. But no, in your mind, it's worth it because you have to accept everything properly. You see, this is what we do with our social anxiety as well. Oftentimes, we are trying to embrace some things that don't have to be embraced because not all parts of ourselves want the best for us. There are evil voices in our minds that want to keep us anxious and keep us shy forever. And instead of just making the equivalent of wiping our foreheads, we are just accepting everything. There are parts of us we need to fight against. Now, a mistake a lot of people are also doing when it comes to acceptance is that instead of accepting everything truly, because as I said, it's mandatory to accept the objective reality truly, they're just trying to cope with it and to convince themselves that reality is different than what it actually is. So, for example, you might see an anxious person that is just trying to hype them in front of the mirror and say they are confident, they're charismatic. That's not gonna do anything. And you will even hear some specialists in the domain encouraging you to do these things. Now they might give you like a bit of a glimpse of reality of what reality actually feels like in the moment, but you don't want to get to 80 years old still hyping yourself up in front of the mirror. It's not sustainable. It's not a good approach. It might be a good first step, as I said. It's not something you want to take on for the rest of your life. Now, if you're trying to cope with reality and you avoid accepting the facts fully, then you will never make any progress. That's why acceptance is mandatory. Accepting everything as it is, trying to view reality as objectively as possible. Because you see, there are such things as facts and stories. Facts are the objective truths of the world, stories are basically your subjective perception of them. So, for example, let's say you are quite overweight, and this is me, by the way. This is an example from my life a few years ago. I used to be like 25% body fat, and every single time I was looking in the mirror, I didn't like what I saw. My instinct was telling me that it's wrong, that I need to put in the work. But then there was another part of me that was more lazy, wanted me to do nothing. And that part of me just tried to mold reality and to create this new reality, this new truth in which everything's fine, in which I'm just accepting myself as I am and I don't have to make any progress whatsoever. That's the wrong idea of accepting yourself, of accepting reality, because I wasn't accepting an objective fact. I was trying to accept a new reality that wasn't even true, that was quite different from the objective reality. You see what I mean? And I've been doing this with social anxiety as well, with shyness, just trying to, as I said, hype myself up in front of the mirror, tell myself that, yeah, you're confident, you're charismatic. These things, these cringe activities that make no progress in your life whatsoever. So, as a conclusion, we need to accept the objective reality fully, accept every fact, and try to view it as objectively as possible. And then, when it comes to our subjective perspective, that's where we have to be very, very cautious. Because unless we are very cautious about these things, we might just end up with sweat pouring down our foreheads and affecting our eyesight. And what that might mean for us is our evil voices just holding us back all the time. Our feelings of tension and of resistance socially holding us back from being more carefree, more loose, more of ourselves. You probably experience this. You have moments around some people where you are able to flow and to be so cool and charismatic and outgoing and funny, but then around other people in certain circumstances, you are just stuck. You are tense, you are stifled. Every single, like, even if you were to try to say one joke, it requires so much energy from you. It's not even worth it. It's one of the toughest challenges in those situations. And the idea is that those situations point back to a certain triggering and traumatic event from the past. This is basically our issue. That traumatic event from the past is acting as emotional baggage for you. And that emotional baggage is something you've been carrying with you forever, ever since it happened back in the day, which might have been like 15, 20, even more years ago. That is acting as your trauma, which is which is the reason your triggers exist, which is basically the reason you have the social anxiety, the shyness, the difficulties in your social life in the first place. And it's interesting because you can't actually hear an evil voice in your mind. You don't hear plain words, plain English, or any known language. This evil voice is communicating to you through feelings, and that's why it's so powerful, and that's why thinking about it solves nothing. If thinking about it was the solution, you would have just been able to do it already. Now, the way it communicates to you is by making you tense, by making you feel all of this social pressure and social performance mindset. Every single time you encounter these types of triggering and difficult situations, everything is so, so tough. And that's how it communicates to you. If we were to just translate those feelings into plain English, we might just get something like, you are a loser, you are boring, no one cares about what you have to say, you will just mess it up like every single time in these type of situations, just like you did back in the day when it first happened. This might be the way your evil voice is communicating to you. Despite the fact that you are unaware of these words, literally, you feel them. You feel the equivalent of them. And now you could just say that you have to accept that fully. Yes, you have to accept the fact that you are feeling these things. You can't just cope with them. But what if instead of allowing them to poison your energetic field and to just hold yourself back in every single one of these situations, you are just to wipe your forehead, to take some anger even, and to say, no, it's time this doesn't occur anymore. It's time for me to put my foot through the door, to take some aggressiveness into this, and to take charge of the situation. Enough is enough. I don't want to give attention to you anymore. What if you are just to use your aggression like this? Because if you have a certain domain of life where you've made great progress or where you have some long-term goals, maybe it's the gym, maybe it's some long-term project you're working on, you know how it feels when oftentimes you don't feel like doing the work, but you know you still have to do the work. So there is sort of like an inner conflict within you where a part of you knows you have to do the work and wants to push you towards doing the work, but then another part of you wants to make you stay in bed all day long because it's too difficult to do the work. Oftentimes, when you feel this conflict, the way to break out of it is simply through taking an aggressive decision. Being like, no, I don't want to waste my time like this. I don't want to just keep sitting in bed all day long. I want to do something more productive. You just take the choice to put your foot through the door and say, like, enough is enough. What if you were to just do this with your social anxiety as well? Because you see, there is also a part of you that wants you to be more outgoing, that wants you to be more social and less shy and anxious. You have that inner conflict already. It's a very similar situation. So the next time you feel your social anxiety in a social situation, you might just want to take this approach of aggression. Instead of just trying to accept that part of you, be aggressive towards it. Stop obeying it, stop being its slave. Take charge of your life. Because the fear you're feeling and every single one of these negative emotions it communicates to you are nothing more than an illusion. You fear these worst case scenario outcomes of being judged, of being bullied, of people not laughing at your jokes. Like you fear it's gonna be like 10 times more painful than it's actually gonna be. And one of the reasons this happens is because that evil voice, that trauma from the past, doesn't communicate to you, to the intelligent part of your brain, but rather to your ancient lizard brain, to that part of your brain that just cares about survival. And that part of your brain is 5 times stronger than your intelligent brain. That's why it takes charge over your entire body in those moments. That's why you end up losing control completely. You don't have the control because your lizard brain is just so strong. You need to learn to manage your lizard brain, and sometimes a good approach to do is, as I said, through pure aggression, through saying like enough is enough. I am in charge, the intelligent part of my brain. This is who I am, not the ancient instincts I've just gotten without any choice. I need to take some action because I have the power to take the action. I need to say, like, enough is enough. I've had enough of this. It's time for me to be more loose. And you need this aggression to take your first step. Once you take your first step, you will realize that the feedback you got from the world was not nearly as scary as you thought it would be. You thought it would be like this immense amount of pain, and instead it's just chill. Instead, you had nothing to fear. It's like 100 times less painful than you actually thought it would be. Interesting, isn't it? You're just being fooled, you're just being tricked by anxiety and by this emotional baggage you've been carrying. But it's time to make it stop. It's time to take agency of it and to be in charge. And if you want my personal help with such a journey, with making this type of progress, I have a link in the description and you can book a one-on-one call with me. I'm going to take you through this process. I'm going to teach you everything you need to know, tailored to your personality, tailored to your current life situation. And I'm going to give you personal feedback based on your progress, based on your journey. And you'll get on the other side because you do have it in you.